everyone, welcome to the JUSTAJAE blog page. JUSTAJAE, the J part being an acronym for Japanese American Experience, is my own personal racial project where I record my experiences as a Japanese and Asian American. This racial project was developed to encourage two purposes. One, the establishment of an Asian American identity, and two, to further the education of Asian American and Asian history in American schools. Okay, so now that all of that formal introduction stuff is over, let's get to what this video is really about, which is to give you guys a more personal introduction to myself and why I started this racial project in the first place. As a first-generation Japanese American, I faced all sorts of cultural and social struggles throughout my life that I'm sure almost every racial group in America has experienced in their lifetime, and I never really understood why I felt this way, and I tried to adjust myself accordingly to the situation I was in, which was that I was raised by parents who had been born and raised in Japan, and I myself was living in America where my peers were people who had been born and raised here, and I myself had spent most of my lifetime here. So I handled that situation in a different number of ways, one of which was pushing away my Asian heritage, whether it be just refusing to learn the language, refusing to really listen to my parents when they talked about their past in Japan, or the other way was really to be what I thought was more American in order for me to fit in with my peers and just try to figure out who I am. I remember having an interview with someone who was very clearly born and raised in Japan, worked there for a living, and I came in with a Japanese face, a Japanese name, and she took that and assumed that I was able to read, speak, understand, and write just everything. And as someone who has lived in America since 5 years old, I didn't have the opportunity to go to Japanese school. I was busy with my own education and with other extracurriculars. I just didn't have the time. And I knew how to speak and understand because my parents made the conscious effort to continue to speak the language around me when I was younger. But other than that, I had no opportunity to learn the language. And suddenly, this woman, instead of treating me like I was an American who could speak Japanese, she began to treat me like an illiterate Japanese person, which was especially insulting to me after having seen her previously interact with someone who was of seemingly Caucasian descent, who had actually had the opportunity to take some Japanese classes and could read or write, and she treated her very differently than she treated me. And I realized I was definitely not the only person who had ever felt this way, and that many other people in my similar situation have experienced this same struggle and this same shame, guilt, but at the same time anger and frustration because it's not fair. I think a lot of people in America have been put in this position. We feel sort of stuck in this gray area between two worlds, and we feel like we either have to choose one or the other or just kind of belong nowhere. This project is to increase the awareness for people like this, people like me. I believe that Asian Americans should be categorized as their own racial group, their own individual identity. They shouldn't be caught in between two things, but be in and of themselves a mix of two things. I think one of the most important ways to solidify this Asian American identity is for people, Asian Americans included, to recognize that Asian Americans were a huge part of American history and are a huge part of American culture today. It is especially important for Asian Americans, people in general as well though, that they are more educated about Asian history so they can be more accepting and understanding and really embrace their Asian heritage, because whether we like it or not, being Asian is a part of who we are as Asian Americans, and it is a part of our identity, and we can't ignore that. Every post on this blog will be a part of my experience as a Japanese and Asian American. I would be overjoyed if this blog ignited some sort of conversation, some sort of argument. I would be just as overjoyed if people just sat back and enjoyed their exposure to Japanese American culture that I have to offer, and I would be even more overjoyed if any of you started your own racial project, talking about your own experiences with ethnicity and racial background in America. Thank you so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you on the next blog post. Bye!